Hi, my name is Pablo Requena. I am a guitar maker, and before I start with the content of the video, I just want to give you a little reminder that if you are interested in learning how to make a guitar and you want to learn face-to-face how to do all these jobs, which are really interesting and great fun, there's two ways that you can do that. You can either get yourself into a plane and come over to Malaga in the south of Spain and spend a month here with me and enroll in one of my guitar making courses. And in that month you will learn how to build your own instrument, and you will go home with a guitar that you have built here in my workshop from scratch. However, if you're not able to come over all the way to Spain and do that, which I am aware that not everybody is able to do that, there's another way that you can do it, which is by purchasing my online guitar making course. And basically it's just a very similar format. It's about 40 hours of video, and in those 40 hours I show every single step that it's involved in building a classical guitar. So if you're interested in that, I already have got loads of feedback from people that have bought these videos and they have been able to build their own instrument. They send me photos. It's great fun and it's a great satisfaction for me to see the result of what they've done. They even send me sometimes some video clips with sound tests of what they've done and so on. So it does work. So if you're interested, just go into the description of the video and I will leave a couple of links there for you if you would like to explore those two options. But for now, I'm just going to talk to you about something that I've talked to in the past, which is about how to make the herringbone for the rosettes in a classical or a flamenco guitar. It doesn't matter. Now the herringbone, I did a few videos. I've done a few videos about this, and basically over the years I've been changing the way that I've been doing things. So I think it could be good to have a bit of a review as to how to get the whole process done in just one video rather than in several. Like there are, if you look through my channel, you'll see there's a few videos about this. And in this video, what I'm going to do is to try to include all the things that have not been mentioned in the previous videos. However, my hope is that just with this video, you'll have here all the information you need up to date, because I think the last time I did those videos about herringbone making, it was quite a few years ago. So what I'm going to do is that I've got some pre-made parts which I'm going to explain how I made them, and the reason why I'm not going to do the whole thing here from scratch is because this video will have to be hours long otherwise. It is as it is, and it's perhaps going to be a little long, so bear with me. But basically we're just going to cut off all the gluing time, all the drying time and all of that, because it's going to make the video too long. But I'm going to explain every single process so that you can do all of this in your own workshop, and hopefully everything will make sense. If something doesn't make sense, then just drop me a question and I will answer the best way possible. So to start with, what we're going to do is first you need to decide what kind of herringbone you want to be making. So I've got a little bit of a sample here so that you can see what we're doing. And what I want to do is a herringbone that it's got green in the outside and it's made of arrows in black, white and red. And down the middle there is a very thin white strip running through. So this is not difficult to do, but it is time consuming and it is a little fiddly to do. And yes, there are certain things that you need to be careful with, because this is a lot of work, and then in the end, if it ends up breaking, then you need to start again. So the first thing is to make a block of veneers that have got that arrangement. So I've got some veneers here. They're not glued together, as you can see. And basically, when you buy your veneers from your supplier, I buy them here in Spain. I can buy them from two suppliers which are really good. One of them is Madinter in Madrid, and the other supplier is in Valencia called Maderas Barber. Now, when I bought these veneers, they were 800 millimeters long, so they were about long, double the length. So, you know, basically, they were about this long, and they were about 150 millimeters wide. In fact, actually, what I'm going to do is that I'm just going to pick one up from here so that you can see what they look like. So you got a couple here, and when you buy them, this is what they look like. They are 0.5 of a millimeter thick. They are 800 millimeters long, sometimes a little bit longer, but not much more. They're always at least 800 millimeters. And then the width can change, but usually they are always at least this width, which is about 150 or 160, something like that. This one is a bit less, it's 140 millimeters. But this is plenty for what we need to do, because to get these strips, all we're going to do is to cut the veneers in half. So we got two lengths of at least 400 millimeters each. And then we're going to cut strips of this width, which I can't remember what it was, but this is 50. So we're going to cut strips 50 millimeters wide and at least 400 millimeters long. I say at least because they're always a little bit more than 400, because these strips, they're always a little bit more than 800. So once you have them all cut up, and you got the colors that you want to be using, in this one is red, white and black, then you need to arrange them in the right order so that you get the right pattern. So the pattern that we're following here is, well, let's have a look at this one. It's 1 millimeter white, 0.5 millimeter red, and then 1 millimeter white. So the black ones are 1 millimeter, the white ones as well, and the red is 0.5 millimeter. So the sequence is always the same, is black, white, red, white, black, white, red, white. So in between each black or white, there's always a white. In between each black or red, there's always a white. So the white is always repeated. So that is what we need to do when you put your stack together. Now, sometimes it's possible to buy 1 millimeter thick veneers. So in here I have 1 millimeter black, so I don't need to use 2 of those, because that will do 2, so I can use only 1. But at the moment I don't have 1 millimeter in white, so I'm just going to use 2 whites. So basically you just arrange them so that you got black, 2 whites, 1 red, then 2 blacks again, and then 1 black, which would be like 2 blacks, but is the same. And the same, white, red, white, black, white, red, white, black, and so on. So what you need to do is to make a stack more or less this thick when it's dry, and what you got here is about 30 millimeters in width. Okay, so you can work out how many veneers you're going to need here to get more or less this thickness. And once you got that, what you're going to do is to glue them all together. So this is what I'm not going to be gluing this together, because it's going to be a bit of a mess of a job, it's going to take some time. And then also when you glue all of this together, it does take a bit of time to dry, because there's a lot of glue here. And normally what I do is that instead of trying to glue together the whole stack in one go, which is what it's going to do, is that as soon as you put a little bit of pressure, all the veneers are going to start to move around, and you're going to have a lot of waste, and it's going to be very ineffective. So what I do is that I glue 3 or 4 at a time. So once I glue 3 or 4, I leave them for a few hours to set, and then I go back to it and I glue a few more. And so what I do is that I glue a block like this over a few days. In 3 or 4 days I got the block done. But what it means is that I glue a few veneers at the time, so that it's a little bit more manageable and it doesn't get out of control, okay? Because I want to utilize the width as much as possible. So once I have all my veneers together, what I need to do is I'm going to put a little bit of tape in here so that they don't move around. So there we are. So just with a little bit of imagination, we can pretend that this is all glued together and it's one piece. So now from here we need to be able to have the lines in an angle, which is what's going to give us the herringbone effect, the points in the herringbone. So the way to do that, you can see I've got this one, this is already glued together, and you can see I've got the lines in an angle. It is completely different. You can see very obviously here. It's exactly the same. You got the black, white, red, white, black, white, red, white, and all that, the same combination. So I've got one over here that I got glued. It's a little bit smaller, but it will help to be able to explain what is the next step. So, I got one that is completely together, different colors, and it's a different length because it's for a different job, but it does exactly the same thing. So once you go from this, you have to remember that the last veneer has to be the continuation of the first one, okay? You don't, like in this one, for example, you don't want to have a green and a green here. So in this block, for instance, you have black, white, red, so you need to work it out to find out exactly which one is the last one that you need to finish with, okay? Because what we're going to do is that you're going to trace a diagonal line and then you're going to cut it down the diagonal. So you're going to have two triangles. And then what you do is that you get this side, put glue into here, and you're going to glue it into here, like that. And then we're going from having lines that were parallel to the edges to lines that are following the angle that we want to have. So you can see how simple it is. So all you need to do is to glue these two together. Do it carefully so that they don't move around too much, because you want to optimize as much as possible the timber that we got here. And then once you got this glued together, then now we have all the lines following the angle that we need. Now, sometimes we want to have more angle or less angle in the herringbone. So we want these tips to have the angle steeper or less steep in relation to the center. So if you're going to have an angle that is more open, all you need to do is to make a block like this that is a little bit bigger so that the diagonal can be a little bit more open. Often what I do is that it would be difficult to get this really big. So once I glue this together, I can cut it down the middle and then glue it next to it. And then automatically I go twice the width. Because the reality is that I'm going to show you some that I've done for different types of herringbone. You can see this was done this way, and in here you can see there is a join line in here and another one here. And this is a similar arrangement, but the veneers are a little bit thinner. And you can see this is about 16 millimeters. Let me see how much is this. Yeah, 15. So what I did was to cut the stack in 3 and make it a lot wider so that then the angle could be a lot bigger. And I've got another one here like this one, for example. Here you can see, this is a lot wider, and I don't know where the join was. I think it was somewhere here. Yeah. So the join was there, going up here all the way. So this was this wide, and you can see that this is only about 20 millimeters, because what I had done is to split the initial block in half before I cut the diagonal. So basically, if you want to have a different angle, you need to work out how wide or how thin you want the initial block to be. I hope that makes sense. And so you can see I got different styles here. This one is black and white. I use this a lot because I like this arrangement of black and white. I also like this arrangement, which is like the one that we're doing now, but the strips are a little bit thinner. And this is just black and white, red and white, which is also very, very cool. So, you know, depending on the rosette that you want to be making, there are different options that you can go with. But what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put a few things out of the way. And then we're going to focus on the one that we are actually doing. So, but now we know how to get to this point where our block is the right length and we have the strips in an angle instead of running parallel to the sides. So the first thing that we want to do is to plane these two faces. In here you can see that I've done this one already. It's very important because this is rough from the banso and this is not going to be any good like this. So all you need to do is to clamp this piece into your vise and with the plane just plane it off and clean it up. One thing that it's important is that you see all these lines and you want to try and keep these lines as perpendicular as possible to the sides. If they start going in an angle, you're going to have complications later. So it's worth to try and do your best. They're never going to be perfect. Like here, you can see this goes down a little bit here. They're not even super accurately straight. Look at this one. This one is like completely wonky in there. This one goes in an angle. But it doesn't matter. As long as they are reasonably straight and reasonably perpendicular, we can work with it, okay? But this is important because now what we're going to do here is that we're going to glue a green veneer, because the one that I want to do is with a green veneer here, which we will remove later on, but that's what I'm going to do. So I've already cut a strip, so what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put this in here, and you can see, hang on, let me see, this was, where was this? In here. So this was there somewhere, lining up with this. Anyway, so you glue a green veneer in the clean side, okay, and then you go and cut a strip from here, which it looks like this one, and you can do that in your banso. This strip is way thicker than we needed, so let me just get the caliper here. So this at the moment is about a bit more than 3 millimeters, like 3.1, 3.3. This is 3.6. This is not very accurate when you cut it in the banso, and it's not supposed to be. You just want to make sure this 3.3. Just want to make sure that you're going to have enough material. Because now from here, what we're going to do is to cut strips along these edges, this edge here and this edge there. And then when we get the strips, we're going to bring them together and you'll see how we're going to start forming this. But what I'm going to do is to cut a couple of strips, and the reason why I was saying before, it's very important that these lines are parallel or perpendicular to the edges and so on. Now it's important that to make sure that all the points in the herringbone are going to line up properly, what we're going to do is to put a mark in here. So I'm going to get a pen and I'm going to number each one of the strips, because I want to know exactly the position in which they were cut, and you'll see in a moment why this is important. So all I'm going to do at the moment is that in this one I'm going to put a number 1 in this corner. No, I've got 1 and 2 here already, so I'm actually going to do a number 3. So I got this number 3 here, and now I'm going to go off to the banso and I'm going to cut a strip from this in the banso, and the banso I got it set up at 2.5 millimeters, so the strips are going to be 2.5. And perhaps it's a good idea is you bring the volume down in your video, because it's going to be a little bit noisy, but I'm just going to cut it. Okay, so now I've got my strip and I can see this number here very clearly. This is a nice thing to see. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a bit of sandpaper and I'm just going to remove this fluff, which is going to make my job a little bit easier. Just like that. So now what I'm going to do is, this one came from here. No, this one came from here, like this. So now I'm gonna put here number 4. Okay. And then I would be carrying on, so I would be cutting them all and I would be doing number 5, number 6, number 7 and number 8. Okay, but at the moment I'm only going to do these 2. So I'm going to go back to the bandsaw and I'm going to cut another one. Right, so now I'm going to clean this up as well. This is just a little bit of sandpaper, 180. It doesn't need to be too coarse, but it's just enough. Like that. Okay, so I have 2 strips here, and you can see that I could cut a few more and I would be numbering them every time I cut them, because the idea of giving them a number is that they always need to come in pairs and they need to be cut. The pairs need to be right next to each other when they were in the original block, like here for example, because due to the fact that these lines are not completely perpendicular or straight, you could see here we managed to do a very nice job, but like some lines don't line up or they're not completely straight. So if I was to use a strip from this side together with a strip from that side, these lines are not going to line up very well. Let's see where we can see that more easily. So for example, in here you can see this goes up in an angle and this goes down in an angle. So a strip from this edge will not line up with the strip from this edge because the distance from the red to the red is different. But if I get a strip from here and then the one right next to it, they are close enough that they will match and they will be lining up properly. So what that means is that if I have these 2, now when I bring it together, they all the points match properly. So that's important to be able to get all the points to line up, because what happened, I don't know if you noticed, but sometimes when you look in some guitars, you can see that when you look around the rosette, so when you look around the herringbone, you can see that some of these points, they don't line up with the one next to it and they cannot disalign a little bit. So it's not the end of the world, but if you're going to be doing this by hand and you want to do it properly, it's a good idea to know how to do it so that all the points line up really well. So that's why it's a very simple step, but it's something that is important to bear in mind. Right, so now what we need to do is that we're not ready yet to glue this together, because you can see how big this is. This is far too big, okay? So the total width of the herringbone, like I got here, is just over 3 millimeters. So what that means is that each one of these sections needs to be 1.5, and then by the time we add on the thickness of the core, which is 0.3, that's why we have a bit more than 3 millimeters. We got like 3.2 in here. Yeah, 3.2. So basically the idea is that we need to make these strips as even as possible in terms of width and all the way along the length, and we want them to be 1.5 millimeters. Now sometimes what you could do is to run this through your drum sander, and you could do it that way. The only problem is that there is a lot of glue here and your drum sander will not like it, and what happens is that the sandpaper in the drum will get clogged really quickly and it will be useless really quite quickly. So you know, you'll have to be replacing the paper a lot and you won't move forward too much. So for me, I find that it's a lot easier to do this just with a block plane, and we're gonna plane this down to the right thickness, and I'm gonna show you how I do it so that the thickness is even all the way along. So that's what I'm going to do now. So if you come around this side, basically I'm gonna use a block plane, but in my block plane I've got one spacer in each corner, and each one of these is 1.5 millimeters. So I just got I'm gonna take this off so that you can actually see. It's just a strip of wood. Okay, so this is a couple of veneers stuck together, and with the caliper we can see that this is just under 1.5, but that's going to be absolutely fine. Okay, so basically this, I'm going to stick it with a little bit of masking tape in this corner here. So I'm going to do that. Okay, so now you can see that I can be planing, but at some point these spaces are going to be down into the bench and they are going to stop the plane from cutting any more than I need to. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to plane the strips, and here it's very important that all the angle pieces that you see here, they're all the top it's going away from me, because I want this to be plain in this direction. If I have it the other way like this, all that's going to do is that the blade is going to catch on these edges and I'm just going to break it, and it's not going to like it. So you have to be very careful to make sure that you plane in the right direction. Okay, so I'm just going to place the plane in an angle so that I avoid the two spaces, these two in the corners, and all I need to do is to start planing this down. So it's a good idea to clean this, because if you have a lot of shavings underneath, it will push this up and then you'll cut this a bit thinner than you need to be. So it's good not to have too many shavings on the bench. Now the other thing I'm doing is that I'm not holding it here to then go, because I could do that and split the thing. So I'm going to hold it near the plane so that I can get it started, and then I'm going to hold it from this end as soon as I can. So same thing here and then from there, and we got a little bit more to do. think we're nearly there. Let's have a look with the caliper. Here we go 1.9, 1.8, 1.7 and 1.6. So I need to cut a little bit more from this end. But you don't need to worry too much, because in the end we need to make sure that we pass in the plane on top of the strip and there is no cutting. That's when we know that the thickness is even all the way along, which is pretty much now, I think. So let's take another measurement. As you can see, that's 1.5, 1.5, slightly more here in the middle, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. So I'm just gonna do just a little bit in here, there, yeah. So now I know that my strip is 1.5 all the way along, nice and accurate. Right, so I'm just going to do the other one quickly, because I'm going to need them both to be able to explain the next step. So I'm just going to crack on with this one. Now that I'm getting to the final thickness, I want to make sure that the bench is clean, because that's when it's important that there is no shavings going underneath the strip. Just gonna have a quick measurement. That's still 2 millimeters, 1.8, 1.8, 1.6, 1.5. So as usual, it's always this end that it's a little bit more tricky to do, but it's not difficult. This job is actually very doable, but it's just got lots of steps and it's time consuming. But once you know what you're doing, you'll see how this is a very satisfying job. Okay, I think this is probably done. So that's 1.6, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5, 1.5. It's just a little bit up here. That's it. One 1.5. Yeah, okay. So now I have two strips that are 1.5, and then I'm checking the numbers are in the right place, because again, you don't want to, I mean, it wouldn't match anyway, but basically you want these two in here, and you can see how this is now the right dimension, and this is starting now to look like what it should look like. And you can see that all the tips line up and match the opposite really well, like a mirror. And this is why you want to cut the strips in the right sequence, and you want to pair them up in the right order. If I was to pair up one strip from this side and then another one from that side, they just wouldn't match, and it would be a bit of a mess. Right, so the next step is to get a 0.3 veneer in white and glue it on only one of these in this side, in the side that it's open. So what I'm going to do is to get, I got prepared a few things here. So this is a bit of 0.3 veneer, and this comes from a piece that was 800 millimeters long and a lot wider, similar to the other ones that I showed you earlier on in the video. I'm actually going to use this one. I like it a bit more. Right, so what we're going to do is that I've got a couple of pieces of MDF, and I just got them covered with this aluminium, sticky aluminium, and you can use any kind of tape, and the idea is that the glue doesn't stick to this. That's all it is for. But you can see this is just MDF, and I like using MDF because it's very flat. So what we're going to do is that we're going to use these two strips, but we're going to glue only one of them. So this is how we're going to do it. I'm going to put a very thin bead of glue in this side here. And you can see I'm not putting a lot of glue, I don't need a huge amount. And the glue that I'm using is Titebond, which is basically the most popular glue used for guitar makers. So a little bit more. There we are. Now all I'm going to do is to spread it with my finger so that there's no parts of the strip that have got no glue. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is to put this veneer in this block, and I'm going to put this strip somewhere along here in this edge, like that. Then I'm going to use the other strip as a spacer, but I'm not going to put any glue on it. And then I'm going to get the other block on the top. And the idea is that having the two strips there, it means that I can clamp this, and there's going to be even pressure on the strip. So now I'm just going to get a few of these grips, and it doesn't need to have a huge amount of pressure. This is going to be plenty for the job that we're doing. So I'm just going to use a few of these here, and then a couple in this side. And that's it. So this, within half an hour, we'll be ready to use it, but I'm just going to put it to one side. I'm going to leave it over here, and I'm going to carry on working with one that it's already glued. So you can see this is stuck into a strip of 0.3 white, and what I'm going to do is that I'm going to get a knife. I'm going to use a scalpel in this case, and what I'm going to do is to cut off the excess There is a little bit of glue here, so it can be a little bit tricky sometimes, but like everything, you just take your time and it will happen. There we are. There you are. So there's a bit of cleaning to do here, but I'm going to do that in a moment. Okay, this one I'm going to save it because I can use it again, so I'm going to put it over there. And now all I'm going to do is that I'm going to cut this off, and this end as well. And then I'm going to trim back the bits of white that I wasn't able to get because of the glue. Trying not to cut into the herringbone is just to kind of remove the overhanging, like for example here you can see I want to remove that and things like this. So I'm just going to work on both sides a little bit to get that, and that's going to make the next job a little bit easier. That's why I'm doing this. Okay, I think that's going to be fine. I'm going to do a little bit on the other side. There you are. Of course it's not cutting, I'm cutting with the other side. Honestly, sometimes I think I'm going blind. And then in here. And then here I have quite a bit. Okay, it doesn't need to be too neat, too tidy. It's just that I don't want too much overhang, because for the next job it's going to make my life easier. So I've got these two of them. These ones are number 1 and number 2, as you can see here. And now when I bring them together, they both are going to line up really well, but with the white strip in the middle. So what we need to see is how to glue this together so that things don't move around. So this is what I do. I make sure that these two ends are flush to each other, and if this is flush to each other, then I know that all the strips and all the points are going to line up. So what I'm going to do is to put a little bit of glue on one side like that. And like before, I'm going to spread it so that there is glue everywhere. So now I need to make sure that I got the numbers the right way, like numbers this way. Now I'm going to get the ends to line up properly. You can do that against a bench. And what we're going to do to keep them together is to wrap them on nylon wire. So let me just get a bit of nylon that I got here. This is very thin. It's like fishing nylon. It's very thin. So what I'm going to do is to start wrapping this end, and I can see here that everything is flush. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is to start wrapping it around, and I can also remove a little bit of the excess of glue, which is going to be a bit of an annoyance later. So basically I'm just going to wrap everything up with the wire, but it's not wire actually, it's with a fishing line. But doing it this way, I know that they're going to be, it's a way of clamping them, but also making sure that everything lines up properly. So it's a bit of a messy job, but it does work really well. So I'm just going to go and have another run. And now I'm putting a little bit more pressure into the fishing nylon so that it has as much pressure as it can have. And I'm going to do one last more. Okay, so this I will leave it quite a few hours so that it dries really well. If I can cut this there, I'm going to put that out of the way. So this one I'm going to use this clip into here so that the wires or the fishing line stays in, and I can see it's kind of a bit twisted, so that I can force it because it's a bit twisted because of the way that I was wrapping it into the nylon, but I can force it straight a little bit because it's still a little bit damp from the glue. Okay, so I'm going to put that to one side, and I've got here one that I done earlier, and this one is ready to go. And you can see we got the nylon here, and what we're going to do is to unwrap it. Okay, we don't need that. So this is one of the length of herringbone that we're going to be using, and you can see this is got all these points line up really well, and everything is a very good match. Right, so this is ready to go, and now the only thing that is left to do here is to bend it. So bending it can be a little bit tricky, and I've done some videos about bending the herringbone. One I did it not that long ago, so you could refer back to that one if you want to, but I'm going to bend this one anyway. So the first thing I would do is, for example, you could try to go ahead and bend it just as it is. And what will happen is that you'll have all sorts of problems. So let me show you here what happens if you do that. Basically, the out strip is not able to handle it because what you're doing is stretching it too much, so it breaks, and then here it separates, and there it breaks. So it's just really not so easy to do it without damaging it. So I just wanted to do that so that you could see why actually it's a good idea to do what we're going to do now. So to be able to bend it, what we're going to do is that we're going to remove, in the previous video that I did not that long ago, you saw that I removed the 2 outer veneers. In this one I'm going to remove only one, and you'll see that if you do it carefully, you still could do it that way, because it's also tricky to do it without having the outer veneer for the bending. So this is what that means. If you can round this side, I can do this job. So basically what I'm going to do is that this is a bit over 3 millimeters, it's like 3.3, and that's fine. So if I'm going to remove the green, which is 0.5, this is going to end up being something like 2.8, that kind of thing. But it's very easy to see when it's all gone. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to use a normal block plane, and instead of just going on like that and playing it, I'm going to get a 2.5 spacer, which is nearly the thickness that I need to go to. It needs to be a little bit more, but this is going to be enough to see what we're doing. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to put this one here in there like this, and you will see how basically this is going to help me to get this plane in the right way. So all I'm going to do is to do a few passes and remove one of the green veneers here. Actually, I'm going to put a little bit more tape, but this way. There you are. And what you will see is that the veneer will get thinner and thinner all the time until you start seeing the white and black and red strips underneath, and it's very easy to know when you need to stop doing this. Down here, so here you can see that's done. In here it's nearly there, a little bit here. So here we got a little bit of green, but you can see this. You can see the herringbone underneath. We need to do this one a little bit more. Okay, and maybe a little bit here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch, and I'm going to put this spacer 2.5 in a sanding block. So I got a sanding block with 120 sandpaper, and I'm going to put the spacer in this end here. And I'm going to do the same, but this time it's just going to be doing a little bit of sanding, which I can control a little bit more easily what I need to do. And basically I just want to remove as much as possible of the green without getting to the herringbone underneath. And if I have a little bit of green left over, I don't mind too much, because the veneer that is going to be next to this when it's all assembled, it's green, so it won't show up. But I want to make sure that I don't cut too much, because I don't want to lose the thickness that I've got for the herringbone. So it's just like cleaning these bits of glue with veneer that we got here. Okay, I think that's gonna be okay. Right, so now effectively what we have here is the complete herringbone, but with one of the sides missing. So what we're going to do is that we're going to try and bend it. You'll see how it's possible, but we're going to have to be a little bit careful, but it will work. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to get the bending iron, which it's been plugged in all this time so that it's nice and hot. And I'm going to switch off these lights, and I'm going to switch that on. So the iron is very hot, and all I need to do is I'm going to get, no, this one is not very strong. I'm going to use this one. So what we're going to do here is that we're going to bend the strip around the cylinder, but we want to make sure that we have, I've got myself already. So this side needs to be to the inside, and we want to have the green outside. And in the previous video I did without it, and it's a little bit easier to do it, but it's also easy to break it. So this way, if you give this enough of a chance for the heat to get through and soften everything up, you will see how we can also bend it. So all I'm going to do is to hold one end with this stick, and I need to just give this a bit of time, because if I force it, it's just going to break. Now the only difficulty here is that because this needs to be exposed to the heat quite a lot for everything to soften up, the glue can get undone and things can separate. But if we do it carefully, as this cools down, it will stay back together. It's like reactivating the glue, but it still will keep everything together. So you can see I'm going very slowly and I'm keeping tension on the strip because I want to have the strip of herringbone always in good contact with the metal. And I'm going slowly because if I try to go too quickly it will just snap and then that'll be the end of it. Whoop! Time to swap hands. So I'm going to put this over here and this over here. Am I going to hold it so that I can do it comfortably? Like that. There we are. So I'm going to hold it here. Then I can go around here. So you can see it's very doable, but you just have to be a bit more mindful and careful with the time that you give to the strip to bend. Okay, so now while it's still a little bit warm, it will be a little bit malleable, so I can get it out and I can give it more or less the size that I need to have. So this one is going to be for the inner part of the rosette, so that way, because when it dries, not when it dries, when it cools down, then it will be quite brittle and it won't do this too easily. But basically that is what we were aiming for. So now we have a complete strip bent around the shape, and this will be ready to use when we assemble the rosette. When we bring the rosette together, there will be another single green veneer in this side that completes the whole thing, which kind of, it looks like this one, but yeah, this one is broken, so we won't be able to use that. So this is how you do your herringbone. All you need to do is to do the other one for the other side and just allow for the circle to be a little bit bigger, and because usually you have two the same in one rosette. So this is probably as much as I can show you about making herringbones. I hope all of this is useful and easy to understand. Like I said earlier in the video, if you are not sure about something, just drop me a line in the comments box underneath the video, and then you can, I can reply the best way possible. So this is where we're going to leave it. I hope this video was helpful, and until the next one.